Today, we're going one-on-one with Dr. Renee Fowler Hornbuckle as she gives an in-depth, step-by-step, retrospective look on recalibrating your life from the inside out. Come along on this journey as Dr. Renee speaks.
I'm Dr. Renee, and welcome to Dr. Renee Speaks. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about how it is that you recalibrate your life. You may be asking, what is recalibration? Well, recalibration is when you make the necessary adjustments to make changes in your life that get you back to an incredible and improved quality of life. You know, life happens and all of us go through things, but it's possible for you to recalibrate and start living a better life today. If everyday burdens in life are weighing you down, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to get to a place in life where you can accept the possibilities and begin winning in every aspect of your life. So go with me, if you will, down this road. You know, the recalibration process came to me when I was facing a very difficult time in my life. And I took my car in to get it serviced, and I realized that the first thing they asked me is, what is the problem? And as I began to describe the issues, then the gentleman said to me, you know what, we're going to run a diagnostic on your car to see what the issue is. And then whatever needs to be adjusted or recalibrated, we'll let you know, and then we'll share with you what the cost is, and then we'll go from there. Well, that was an aha moment for me, and I began to think about how that's our life. You know, there are times we go through life and we're running on empty, we're running on fumes, we're angry, we're upset about our past, we're not happy in our present. And so we have to make certain that we go through the things that are necessary to make the adjustments so that we don't carry all of that into our future. So that's where the concept of recalibrate started. So if we would follow the same process that we follow when we take our car in to be serviced, so you have to understand the goal of taking your car in to be serviced is that when you leave, your car is put back into service and it's improved and it is at a higher quality. Well, our life is the same way, but so often we don't stop, we don't make the assessments, we don't run the diagnostics, and because of that, we're just broken and we're empty. And we can recalibrate our life if we're honest with ourselves, if we begin to say, you know what, there's some situations that need to be diagnosed, and if we make those diagnoses and then we start there and make the adjustments, we can get back to that improved quality of life, just like our cars when they're put back into service. So are you ready to have your life put back into service? Then you have to be willing to say, you know what, this is my reality, this is where I am, and I'm going to be willing to do whatever is necessary so that I can recalibrate my life, so that I can be put back into a better quality of life. So there's some steps that are followed when you take your car in. The first step is they ask you, what is going on with your car? And usually what do? You tell them. So that means you have to be aware of those indicators and those warnings that are appearing to you that made you take it in the first place, okay? Then they say, okay, we'll write this down, we'll run the diagnostics. And then they take your car in, they usually hook it up to a machine, and they run the diagnostics. The reason that they do that is because they are trying to make a determination on what needs to be fixed or repaired or readjusted or recalibrated. And it's vitally important that they go through that process so that they can get to the core of the matter. And then the next thing that they do is they create a plan for the readjustments to be made. So they'll usually make the assessment, write down the plan, and then they'll call you and they'll say, we found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? And each of those are gonna cost this amount. What would you like for us to do? Then you approve the adjustments that need to be made, and then they do the work and they make the adjustments, they recalibrate the car, and then they return the car to you. And again, the goal is that that vehicle be placed into a better quality of service. And so our life is the same way. So stay with me, if you will, and we're going to go down this journey of recalibrating our lives. If you've owned a car If you overlook the issues, usually you're going to have some serious problems. I want you to think about that for a moment, because our life is the same way. Things begin to happen to us in life, and we just continue to move forward. We ignore all of the indicators, all the warnings, and we just keep pushing ourselves to the max. Well, you know what? I don't know about you, but when I was in college, I had a car, and I was driving back to college, and my daddy told me to get that oil checked before I left. I think I kind of thought about it, but I don't know if I actually did it. It was a 4.5-hour drive back to college, and halfway there, guess what? My car broke down. It actually threw a rod because I ignored the indicators and the warnings because I was so busy and so caught up in all the things that were going on, and I wanted to make the drive back to college. Well, guess what? I ended up broken down on the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, and I was devastated. I sat there for a moment. I cried. I got out the car, I let my hood up, a couple of people stopped. I got real fearful when they stopped. I thought, oh Lord, somebody's gonna grab me and they're gonna just, not be helpful. But the thing is, I learned from that experience. I learned not to ignore the things that happen in your life when life happens to you. So when we talk about this process, the first thing we have to learn how to do in our life is evaluate where we are. See, you have to make an honest assessment of really what's going on in your life. And for a lot of us, we don't like doing that. But there are several ways that you can begin to work through this evaluation process. I like to call it reevaluating your life, making periodic checks, taking your life in for those diagnostics, being hooked up to the machine so that you can really determine where you are. So there's several ways that you can go about it. First of all, just pray and reflect about your life. A lot of times people get so frustrated, so aggravated, so irritated, and we don't take the time to really stop and determine where we are. So learn how to pray and reflect. In fact, Psalms 139 says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." So let God begin to search your heart. But you also have to do a self-evaluation. That's the point of praying to God, stopping and reflecting and meditating, getting a download so you can begin to assess where you are. Or maybe I should say it this way. Look into the mirror. I know that's a hard thing for many people because we don't like the reflection of what we see, but that's the best way to start that evaluation of yourself. Take just an hour to yourself and just get a journal, sit down, and just write it. And until you deal with your truth, until you own where you are, you're not going to be able to get through this process. Again, it's like the car that's hooked up to the machine, and that machine is going to tell everything that's wrong with that car. And even if the machine misses something, that master mechanic is going to come back, and they're going to sit down, and they're going to go through the diagnostics in a manual way to determine if there really needs to be a fix for what it is that you said was out of sync. Our lives are the same way. You can't keep pushing yourself. In 2012, I did that. I pushed myself so hard until I just literally hit a wall. I was I was like a size 0. I had lost all this weight. And the thing about it is there were people around me that noticed that I was going through this transformation. I don't know, maybe they thought I was just trying to lose some weight or something, but I wasn't healthy. I did not look good. And it wasn't until one day I was sitting down, I stood up. I've never had blood pressure issues, and my blood pressure spiked. I got dizzy. I sat back down. They took my blood pressure, and they were like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" Well, see, that was an indicator that there was something going on in my life, and I had to stop. I had to evaluate my life. I had to handle my own truths. I had to look at where I was. I had to look at how I got there. And it was a hard thing. I was trying to take care of everybody else. And in that process, I had neglected to take care of me. And so you have to begin to understand that in order to get to that healthy place, you've got to reevaluate where you are. You've got to learn how to look at your own life and write down some questions and then answer them honestly. How did I get here? What was the cause of the issues in life that caused me to feel unhealthy and out of sync? And if you will just take the time, you will be able to evaluate your life, That's where this recalibration process begins. And until you do that, or as they say in the 12-step programs, you got to own your own truth, start where you are, and admit where you are. That's the beginning of how you recalibrate your life. In the recalibrate model, we talked about the first step being that you have to learn how to evaluate or reevaluate, rethink, rediscover your life. Basically, just learn how to be honest and own where you are. And then you move on to step 2, and that's where you make the necessary changes. That's where you reframe where you are. And again, this can be sometimes difficult to do, but this is where real change occurs. This is where you begin to, after assessing where you are, begin to take the necessary steps that are required to bring about the necessary change in your life. You might be asking yourself, what changes do I need to make? All of us in life have been through things. None of us are perfect, and we do need to make changes in our life. A lot of times we don't think that we do, but we do, because if we didn't, then we'd get different results, okay? So it's okay for you to accept the fact that there needs to be change in your life. Real change takes thought. Real change takes energy. Real change takes W-O-R-K. I like to spell that out, work, because that's something that many of us don't like to do. But in the recalibration process, again, going back to your automobile, if they're going to make the necessary adjustment so that your car has an improved quality of service, then changes have to be made. So you have to create a plan. That's what they do when they call you and they say that this is the work that needs to be done on your car. They've created a plan and they present the plan to you. So when you begin to look at your life and assess where you are, if you really want to make the change, then you'll begin to come up with a plan of action. For example, I'm of a certain age and I'm really starting to realize that I've got to be physically fit. It's not something I desire to do, but if I want the expected outcome of being physically fit as I continue to age in my life, then I've got to get up, either get out on the street and walk, get out at the park and walk. I've got to go to the gym, which, by the way, I do pay monthly fees, so they're taking my money. I'm a donor there, and I never use that service. But if I want to make the change and want to have the good physical ability that I desire to have in my mind, then I've got to get up physically and do the work that's required to bring about the necessary result. And so when you begin to reframe your life or realign your life, it's not something that is going to be detrimental to you. It's something that's going to be helpful for you. And so you've got to create an environment for your own growth. That is highly critical. You've got to create an environment for the necessary change that's required in your life. So you got to create a plan. You got to write it down, write the vision, make it plain so you can read it and run with it. You've got to have tangible goals that you're working toward. When you set out to set goals, they've got to be smart. They have to be specific. They have to be measurable. They have to be attainable. We do believe that you can reward yourself, and they have to be timely. So you've got to set those smart goals. Just to say that you want to do something is not going to bring about the change. We do that every day. We say we want change, but we have to be specific. So in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year, what is it that you want to do? What change do you want to bring about? Maybe you want to learn how to cook. Maybe you want to deal with your emotional issues. You have to be specific about the things that you do, again, in order to bring about the necessary change. So what we do is write the vision, make it plain so that we can read it over and over and over again and run with it. We set the smart goals. We create the right environment. Then we pray and we ask the Lord to help us. We ask the Lord to guide us. We might even have to then, after asking the Lord, get some accountability with some people that are around us to say, hey, you know what? I want this change to happen in my life, but I really need some help. So don't be afraid to visit with your friends, your pastors, or even professionals that are in the industry of the change that you want to bring about, just like with your car. I don't know about you, but have you ever tried to save some money on a car and you took it to some shade tree mechanic and the car ended up worse? See, we do that in our life too. We go to people that are not qualified They're not experts in certain areas, and then they get us all messed up and get us out of sync. For example, if you need help in your marriage, why are you going to somebody that's been divorced 5 times? Okay, they haven't figured out the solution and the way to resolve their issue, so don't go to them. Find somebody that's proven. Go to a seminar that has experts that are proven in these areas. In your singleness, you want to be a successful single, don't go to somebody that is challenged and always complaining about their singleness. Go to somebody that says, you know what, I am a single, I'm complete, I'm whole, I'm fulfilled in life. Things are not perfect, but you know what, I'm fulfilling purpose. I'm busying myself with the things that I'm passionate about. And so, again, the thing is, you would take your car to a shade tree mechanic and expect it to be improved in its quality of service. Then why don't we do our lives that way? So if you're going to be serious about realigning your life, which is the second step, you got to reframe it and make the necessary change. Write a plan, set the goals, and then set out to do it, because that's where the real change occurs. Are you committed to that change? If you are, then you'll get up and do something about where you are to bring about the quality of life that God has for you. So we talked about in the recalibration process that you have to reevaluate, you have to realign, and the final step after you've identified what you need to change is to make the change and simply be relaunched into a better quality of life. Just like with your automobile. When you take your car into the mechanic to get it repaired and then you go to pick it up, you have an expectation that those adjustments, those changes, those recalibrations have been made, and you believe that when you drive out that car is going to function in the way that it was supposed to. So guess what? In your life, after you've done all the things in the recalibration process that you need to do, then you're ready to relaunch out into a great life. And so that's what the recalibration process is all about. Recalibration of life. Why in the world would we need to do that? Because life happens. None of us are promised that we'll live a life that's trouble-free. And so when life happens, if you're prepared and equipped to handle things, then you'll know what to do. And so we're going to deal with some difficult topics. We're going to deal with recalibrating when life just happens. Maybe it's the loss of a job. Maybe it's the loss of a loved one. But when we suffer loss, we actually are affected by that loss. We're going to talk about recalibrating after divorce, recalibrating after becoming a single parent, having to raise your kids alone when you never signed up for that. We're going to talk about recalibration after being violated in some place, some way, somehow. These things happen. When you're falsely accused, when people slander your name, the list just goes on. Recalibrating, after just experiencing unexpected things that happen in life. These are things that we need to talk about, and I guarantee you, if you will listen to what it is that we're sharing as I speak, you will be able to recalibrate your life. I'm Dr. Renee, and I'm here to teach you and to equip you in properly recalibrating your life, because life happens, and when life happens, you must know what to do. Recalibration is something that all of us can do because it'll bring about the necessary results that we want in our life. So I'm Dr. Renee, I'm speaking, and I'm going to help you learn how to recalibrate your life.
To partner and or support Dr. Renee, visit ReneeHornbuckle.com.